So, today we're going to talk about something called the aesthetic architecture of learning. And really, what that boils down to is this: the feel of an educational experience is just as important, maybe even more so, than the raw information you're getting.
Okay, let me ask you something. Think back, way back. What's the one lesson from school that you still remember, like vividly? I'm willing to bet it wasn't just some boring list of facts, right? No way. Chances are it was a real experience, something that had a shape, a feeling, a vibe to it. And yeah, that right there, that's our first big idea. Because the most powerful kind of education, it isn't just about, pouring information from a teacher's brain into a student's notebook. It's about actually creating an experience. You can really see the difference here. On one side, you've got your basic information transfer. It's just a bunch of disconnected facts, stuff you cram for a test, and then poof, it's gone. But on the other side, you have a true experience, a journey, a story, something that actually sticks with you for the long haul. All right, so where did this whole idea even come from? Well, to really get to the bottom of it, we've got to look at the work of a philosopher named John Dewey. He's the one who really gave us the words to talk about this feel of learning.
So Dewey's term for this was an aesthetic experience. And I know, that sounds a little fancy, right? But it's actually a really deep idea. He basically said that this is how we make sense of everything. We take the messy, chaotic stuff of life and we shape it into something that feels whole, something meaningful. And this isn't just for art museums, This is a fundamental part of being human.
And according to Dewey, a real experience has three key parts. First, there's unity. It just feels complete, like a whole thing. Second, it has momentum. It's got a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. And finally, there's what he called consummation. It builds up to a satisfying conclusion. It's really the difference between a great movie and just like channel surfing through random scenes. Okay, so Dewey laid the groundwork. But then another philosopher, Friedrich Schiller, came along and took this idea even further. He made an even bolder claim about why all of this really truly matters. See, for Schiller, this wasn't just about making class more interesting. He argued that aesthetics, things like beauty, play, a sense of form, they are absolutely essential for cultivating human freedom. I mean, just stop and think about that. That is a massive claim. He's saying that how we learn can literally make us more free as people. So how on earth does that work? Well, Schiller's theory was that we all have these two sides to us, right? There's our physical, sensory side, and then there's our logical, rational side. And what aesthetic experiences do, he said, is they build a bridge between the two. They engage our senses and our minds at the same time. And when that happens, we become more whole, more complete human beings, capable of making our own choices. You probably know this feeling. It's what we now call a flow state, that amazing feeling when you're so into something that time just disappears. For Schiller, that's where freedom really begins. Okay, so this philosophy stuff is really cool, for sure. But what does it actually look like in a classroom? How do we make that jump from just dumping information on students to actually designing a true experience for them? And that's the million-dollar question for any educator, right? If we're going for a certain feel, a certain experience, how do we know if it's working? Our usual tools, like test scores, well, they might not tell us the whole story here. Well, here are a few practical ideas. You can start looking at student work differently, not just for the right answer at the end, but as an artifact that tells the story of their whole journey. You can literally audit the physical classroom space. You can take notes on the rhythm of the room, the ebbs and flows of energy and engagement. Or, you could just ask students to tell you the story of how they learned something. And this all leads to a really crucial point: the learning climate of a classroom. It's not just about putting up some nice posters on the wall. It is not decor. It is a powerful educational variable, and it needs to be designed with the same intention, the same seriousness that we give to the curriculum itself.
All right, but before we wrap up, we have to talk about one last really critical point, because there's a real danger here, a big way this whole powerful idea can be misunderstood.
Yeah, because whenever we start talking about things like aesthetics or atmosphere, it's just so easy to get sidetracked and end up with something that's, well, totally superficial. And this right here is the absolute key distinction. On the wrong way side, you have aesthetics as just vibes, style with no substance. But the right way is to see aesthetics as a tool for creating meaning, as a path to that freedom we talked about. One is just decorating a room, the other is designing with a deep purpose. And really, this quote just says it all perfectly. The second our focus on the feel of learning becomes just about making things look pretty without that deeper ethical purpose, the purpose of empowering students, of creating meaning, the whole thing just falls apart. The why behind what you're doing has to be the engine for the how. So that leaves us with one last question to think about. And this is for all of us, whether you're a teacher, a student, or just someone who loves to learn. When you look at the places where you learn, are they just decorated, or are they truly intentionally designed?